President Trump announces he's ordered nuclear weapons testing to resume for the first time since the Cold War. And the 14th boat attack, 4 more killed. We'll talk to a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee about whether this is legal. And it's day 30 of the government shutdown. Millions are on the verge of losing benefits for food. One furloughed worker has taken to selling hot dogs. Hello, I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns in for Major Garrett tonight. Welcome to the Takeout. Nuclear weapons testing. It's a phrase that hasn't been said by a superpower in over 30 years, and one that harkens back to the Cold War era. President Trump made his startling announcement in a Truth Social post just before his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, saying, "Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately." Now, China has not tested a nuclear weapon since 1996, but it has expanded its arsenal in recent years. Russia hasn't carried out a test since 1990, but President Vladimir Putin said his country tested a nuclear drone and recently tested a nuclear-powered cruise missile. The last time the U.S. conducted a nuclear test, 1992, in an underground bunker in Nevada, codenamed Divider. President George H.W. Bush later imposed a moratorium after the fall of the Soviet Union. President Trump spoke about this on Air Force One after his meeting with Xi.
They seem to all be nuclear testing. Russia? We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing, and we've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Now, right now, there are more questions than answers, as you can imagine. What does nuclear weapons testing actually mean? What other countries are doing it, and when will they happen? Well, lucky for us, we have senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata to answer all of these questions for us. Charlie, good to see you. Okay, we'll take it piece by piece. When the president says they're going to do this on an equal basis, what does that mean?
So experts that we've been speaking to today say it's ambiguous. It might be intentionally ambiguous. Okay, so if we look at equal basis, is the president referring to detonating nuclear weapons, exploding nuclear weapons like we did back in 1992 and other superpowers have done? Or is he talking about the delivery platforms, right? The missiles that deliver these weapons on board submarines? The B-2, the B-52 bombers, obviously the intercontinental ballistic missiles in the United States and Europe. Those are tested all the time. Okay. So if he's talking about it being, if we're going to take it per word, what he's saying on an equal basis, that would suggest the same kind of testing that President Putin was talking about a nuclear-powered and nuclear-capable weapon, but not actually detonating the weapons.
Okay. I mean, that's obviously an important distinction there,
Clearly.
Right? So we mentioned that George H.W. Bush called for this moratorium. What were the events kind of leading up to that call? I mean, it's pretty amazing that we haven't talked about nuclear testing for more than 3 decades.
Honestly, I can't even remember that far back. But there was an arms race, and it was pretty competitive between Russia and the United States. Primarily, China was there, kind of in the background. And during the early 90s, you mentioned 1992 was the last time the United States detonated a weapon. It was an underground weapon. Even before that, the Russians stopped doing it, and then they introduced what's called the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. The United States has signed up to it, but not ratified. So it's sort of like this agreement that's gone on, because it's not just about the United States now. North Korea is the only country that has tested a weapon in this century. So it's this agreement between the superpowers in order to keep non-proliferation among the other nuclear-armed states or ambitious nuclear-armed states.
So what do those superpowers say or think? What have they been saying in response to hearing the president?
Yes, well, you know, this is really important because this Trump administration is all about messaging, right? Yeah. And this is a message to the Chinese government and also to the Russian government. And the Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, came out and said, well, wait a minute, we're already holding our own on a moratorium. The weapons that we've tested, he made clear, we did not detonate those weapons. But if the United States resumes exploding weapons, detonating weapons, and carrying on these kind of tests, that Russia might just follow suit.
I mean, that is provocative, to say the word. Now, I know there's a lot of ambiguity, but you helped clear a lot of things for us. So thank you very much, Charlie, and we will obviously stay tuned for that. Now, President Trump is back in Washington tonight after spending the week in Asia. His trip capped off with a meeting, as we mentioned, with Chinese President Xi Jinping, which President Trump described as, quote, amazing. So now we'll go to the White House, where we find our Ed O'Keefe. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. So tell me a little bit about what happened in this meeting, because going into this, Trump predicted a deal would happen. Then this ended with him essentially slashing tariffs on China. So what exactly went down? What came out of this?
Well, the president says, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 12, that he essentially got everything he asked for. But the president saying that is one thing. Let's see over the next few days and weeks as the paperwork comes out whether that's indeed the case. He claims that China will begin buying soybeans again from American farmers, that it's going to limit the flow of the ingredients needed to make illegal fentanyl, that it's going to ease those restrictions it put on exporting rare earth materials that help build batteries and satellites and electric cars that are desperately sought by American firms, and that it's going to be potentially buying more American-made or domestically sourced energy to offset purchases that it might have made from Russia before. Because of all that, he's going to slash the tariffs on China by 10 percentage points, about 47%, and, suggests that things went well. Claims that there was no discussion about Taiwan. There was no discussion of the nuclear threats that the president tests that the president suggested should resume, and that otherwise it was a great meeting.
I mean, Trump described this, as you mentioned, as a 12 out of 10 on this scale, but I'm wondering if we've heard anything from Beijing on this matter. Have they talked about their version of events here?
Not in the detail that the president has provided, but the general gist of the statements on behalf of President Xi were that it was a positive meeting. And by all accounts, publicly and there in the room, as you could see, there was no sign of hostility, a desire to talk, and an agreement that they will see each other again in the next year. The president says he's going to be going to China now in April. He'd suggested it would be February. Now it'll be April. And that he's making arrangements for Xi to come back to the United States as well. This was their first meeting since Trump 1.0 back in 2019 at the G20 in Japan. This time it was at a military base in South Korea on the sidelines of the economic conference both of them were attending. It was, as you said, the capstone of this week that the president had across Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea. Said he was quite eager to have this meeting, and in his view, believes it went well. But, of course, he's now back here in Washington tonight, going to be handing out candy to some trick-or-treaters on the South Lawn, and then diving into the domestic concerns he's got here. We are day 30 of the shutdown, right? There's big concerns this weekend about the end of funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And there are, of course, elections in the next few days that could give us an early sense of how voters are holding him and his administration accountable when it comes to the statewide elections in New Jersey, Virginia, the mayor's race in New York, and the big redistricting vote out in California.
That's right, which I know you have been covering extensively as well. We'll stay tuned to that coverage. Ed O'Keefe, thank you very much for wrapping up that whirlwind trip for us. We appreciate it.
Take care.
And turning now to Capitol Hill, where, as Ed mentioned, we are on already day 30 of the government shutdown. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says that there are a lot of, quote, conversations among senators to end the gridlock. We're seeing the impact that it's having on U.S. airports. Since this past Monday, there have been more than 20,000 delays and 1,000 cancellations of U.S. flights. Vice President J.D. Vance shared his concerns about the government shutdown's impact on U.S. airports after leading a roundtable with aviation experts at the White House today.
And as much as delays have gotten worse over the last couple of weeks, everybody here is very worried that we're going to see more delays, more stresses on the people who are actually making the aviation system run, and more problems for both the consumers but also the great workers who actually make this incredible shining jewel of the American economy actually work and work on time and work safely.
And Chris Sununu joins us now. He's the president and CEO of Airlines for America. That's the trade association for leading U.S. airlines. He also, of course, formerly served as governor of New Hampshire, and he attended today's roundtable at the White House. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. Can you tell me what you discussed at this White House meeting today?
Well, it was substantive. The Vice President and Secretary Duffy of Transportation brought in a lot of unions, the airlines themselves and just wanted to hear the stories. What's happening with the controllers and the TSA agents? What are you hearing about their families that have now gone a month without being paid? How is it affecting them? And the stories were consistent around that table, that it's really hitting a breaking point. The skies are safe. There's no question about it. That's why there are delays out there, because they slow things down to make sure that safety is paramount. But these individuals, they're going to undoubtedly keep seeing the call-outs happen, because they have to come home and explain to their kids and their wife, hey, why are we paid yet? No, but I had to do more overtime today, and the government's still not paying us. And by the way, that probably means we can't have some of the nice things we normally have, and maybe the kids can't play sports or whatever it is. It's affecting people's lives, and this vice president, he did a tremendous job of just listening to these stories to get a better understanding of what's happening on the ground. I think it's a great lesson for folks here in D.C. Get outside of this beltway. Go talk to folks around this country. This isn't a regional issue. It's not a political issue. Right? I can guarantee you as many Democrats and Republicans are being affected by not getting paid during the government shutdown. As many Democrats as Republicans are going to potentially go without SNAP benefits for those that are food insecure all across this country, because 12 times the folks up at the Senate have said no. 12 times they've said, no, we're not funding this, right? How do you explain that to those families? How do you explain that to the military? So it's not just the airlines. Obviously, we're a little bit at the tip of the spear here. I think the system is working remarkably well, considering there are delays, very few cancellations, but there are actually some delays, and people have been very good about packing their patience, as we like to say. But it's really coming to a head. This is completely unsustainable, especially as we go into these holiday weekends upcoming.
Yeah, and I do want to underscore the point that you just made, which is that it is safe to fly. Yes. That's why we're seeing the delays. But I'm wondering, from what you've heard from the leaders of these airlines, also from TSA workers across the country, is there a breaking point at which may no longer be the case? I mean, we've talked to TSA workers who are taking on second jobs in order to make up that gap in the paycheck. Does there come a breaking point where it may not be safe to fly, where you may, be hesitant to book that flight?
I understand why people may be hesitant, but it is safe, and it will continue to be safe. The breaking point, as we talk about it, if those TSA workers or the controllers say, look, I just can't do any more overtime without getting paid, that's natural, that's human, that's expected. They're just not going to come in, right? And so what happens? Then you see the cancellations, you're going to see gridlock on the runways and all that sort of thing. It's not a safety issue per se. It's really just about, hey, we can't get your plane off the ground because again, we have to ensure the safety, and no one would put the system at risk that way. So the system is going to remain safe, but the breaking point really comes where the whole thing just kind of gridlocks, and all of a sudden the politicians on the other side are going, hey, great, I guess we got what we wanted. We got a system that completely gridlocked, and maybe now we can, force the unprecedented move of having a massive discussion on health care during what should just be a clean CR, a simple CR. I was governor, and I had continuing resolutions, and they're always what we call clean. It just says, we're going to keep funding the government. And you know what a CR is for? Cooling heads, right? Let some of the hot politics dissipate a little bit. Let government get funded, and then we'll come back in a month or so, and we'll deal with these bigger issues, these tougher issues that are going to take more debate and more discussion. But you can't hold all of the entire system hostage because you're not getting everything you want. Think about this. If the Republicans were to say, sure, we'll give you everything you want, guess what happens 3 months from now? It happens again and again and again, because they know if you hold the system hostage, you can now play politics with it. It's not fair. It's not right to the American people. And hopefully there's enough pressure on these Democrats that they know better. These moderate Democrats, they absolutely know better that this shouldn't be done. So hopefully there's enough pressure on the system before it gridlocks to get them to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I certainly understand your point. Given all of that, just quickly, I mean, would you urge Republicans to maybe take some of these one-off bills, at least to kind of cover, for the next few weeks, to cover these workers and get them paid? Would you support kind of one-off measures?
Look,
again, I know it's not ideal.
Yeah. Anything to get workers paid is great, but here's the big but. So what happens 3 weeks from now, during the Thanksgiving week? We're right back to where we started. Stopgap measures are not the solution. They sound nice in the moment, but But as we get closer to those holidays, the fear is that either we have a good long-term solution or the whole thing is going to really gridlock at the worst possible time. So that's, we want workers to get paid, but that would only be a very temporary stopgap. It's not a permanent solution. And again, you can't just keep kind of putting your hole in the cracked dam. You need to make sure you rebuild and you do it the right way. And that is a clean CR. These folks know better. They've said no 12 times. 12 times they've said we're not funding SNAP, we're not funding these workers that are giving us unpaid overtime. It just you know what? Here's the best news. The next bill that comes before them, they still have a chance to do the right thing. Just say yes, let's move on, and then we can deal with these bigger issues as they come.
All right, and as you mentioned, the travel season is already upon us, getting closer by the day. Governor Sununu, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And 4 people are dead after the Trump administration says it struck another alleged drug boat in the Pacific. But should the president be getting congressional approval for these strikes? I'll ask Florida Republican Congresswoman Maria Salazar next. Plus, a top military official orders the National Guards of all 50 states to gear up for possible riot control. The move that will see them trained on use of batons, body shields, tasers, and pepper spray. And as thousands of furloughed federal workers try to figure out what's next, one IRS lawyer is now pursuing a childhood passion. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. And welcome back. The U.S. military struck another alleged drug vessel in the Pacific Ocean yesterday, killing 4 people. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted footage of the strike on social media last night. This marks the 12th time in less than 2 months the U.S. military has carried out strikes on boats suspected of trafficking narcotics. At least 15 vessels have been struck and 61 people have been killed. Florida Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar joins us now, and of course she is a member of the House Foreign Relations Committee. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here. I'm wondering how you feel about these strikes.
And I represent hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans at the same time.
Absolutely, and I wanted to mention that in a moment. But given that context, how do you feel about the Trump administration carrying out these strikes without congressional oversight? Do you think that's an overreach?
Well, it was about time. The American audience needs to understand, and I'm the chairman of the Western Hemisphere subcommittee within the House Foreign Affairs Committee, so I know that area very well. And we need to remember 3 things that are very important. Number 1, Maduro is not the legitimate president of the country of Venezuela, number 1. He stole the presidential elections after he signed an agreement with the United States, with the Biden administration, that he was going to go if he lost the presidential election. Not only that, he was indicted in 2020 by a federal grand jury in this country that he was one of the heads, he was the head of one of the most important transnational criminal organizations pushing drugs into our streets. And on top of that, he is the head of that drug cartel called the Sons Cartel. The Trump administration is saying no more. Either you stop your activity and you leave, or we're going to take you out. What's wrong with that?
But should Congress be alerted to this fact or given the intel that they had to carry out these strikes? Are you okay with that part of it? Don't you think Congress should be let in on this?
I am okay because the Trump administration has declared that we are not invading a country. We are taking out an illegitimate person who is sitting at the presidential palace because he stole the elections by force. And on top of that, he is the head of a transnational criminal organization, a drug cartel that is pushing drugs into our territory. And it is a platform or a launching pad for Colombia to send drugs to Venezuela and then from Venezuela to Mexico and to the United States. What Trump is doing is what we should have done decades ago. Other presidents should have sent the same message. Trump is sending the message to Maduro, we can negotiate your way out. But he is not paying attention because the problem is that for the last 40 years, since Ronald Reagan during the Sandinistas, the bad hombres, the thugs in Latin America, have not paid attention or respect the United States. So this is the first time when if you do not respect me and go the right way, then we're going to take you the wrong way. So I'm okay with it.
And just quickly, you mentioned that you have a significant presence of Venezuelan Americans in your district in South Florida. Tell me how that is informing your perspective here.
Well, you know, the Venezuelan Americans, no one wants to leave their country. We're talking about the largest, the country with the largest reserves of oil in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We're talking about that the Venezuelans were very rich people because they lived in a very rich country with oil and minerals and rare minerals and water and wood, and they had everything. And on top of that, they were one of the most prosperous countries and a very close ally of the United States up until 25 years ago, when Marxism and socialism invaded that country. Right now, the average Venezuelan weighs 15 pounds less because of lack of food. Most of the people, you had 8 million Venezuelans having to leave, and many of them are in South Florida, and they have voted for me, and I'm representing them. So they're okay with the fact that the thug called Maduro needs to go, and they applaud, and they are highly grateful to this administration for doing that. For any administration who would have done it, they would be grateful for. But Trump had the fortitude, had the strength, had whatever you want to call it, to do the right thing. What Trump is doing is the right thing to do. And then say to the opposition, who won the presidential elections last year, Maria Corina Machado, then here's your country, now you take care of it. And we definitely want to be part of that reconstruction because the American oil companies will be very helpful. Will be a mutual agreement between the oil companies and Venezuela for them to pay for their own reconstruction. It's not going to cost us one penny.
And Congresswoman, you are in your district right now. You're not in Washington. House Speaker Mike Johnson has kept you all home in your districts for the past 6 weeks. I'm wondering, do you agree with that strategy? I ask because we did have one of your colleagues, Kevin Kiley, on yesterday, and he says that the House should return to work and perhaps, you know, work on other things. Is there more you guys could be doing here in Washington? Understanding, of course, the argument that you've already voted on the CR. But that aside, should you be back here in Washington working on everything else?
You know, I was laughing because if we were to be in Washington, what we should be doing is knocking on the door, you know, like cross the aisle to the Senate and then just stake out those 4 senators, that Democratic senators who have not wanted to vote for the CR, and tell them, hey, we did our job. Look, we're here. We want to go back to work. Please open up the office again. But once again, put it in talking points in simple terms. The American people need to know that we, the House, 6 weeks ago, we did our job in voting for the CR in order to have a little bit more time, like 7 more weeks, so we could keep on working and negotiating Obamacare extension, subsidies, negotiating whatever we needed to, because we do want to pass a new budget, a Republican budget. But then that got stuck because the Senate is not doing this. You have explained it many times, but people need to understand.
Right.
We should not be having this issue. We should be all sitting at the table negotiating.
Right. But should you guys be here in Washington to do exactly what you were describing, or get to work on appropriations and other things that the House needs to work on? Should you be out of session for 6 weeks?
But you know, the thing is that we may be in the House, but then we know that there are so many thousands of government and federal employees that are not getting paid. So we need to focus on what is of most importance, of what's time sensitive. Keep the government open, pay the air traffic controllers so we do not get delayed flights, pay the military members, pay everybody that works in the government at the federal level, and then continue working. The problem here is that we got to stop the politics. We have to stop what's happening. Because the only thing we, GOP, were asking the Dems is give me 7 more weeks, give me a little bit more time, specifically when it comes to Obamacare. that we needed to renegotiate those extended 1-year subsidies. And I'm the first one who would agree to look at it for 1 more year. I have 20% of my district needs food stamps or SNAP. My elderly, the most senior part of the society. We need to feed them. We need to give them the possibility of continue eating every day. 20%. I'm one of the, probably I think I'm the 5th most important district when it comes to SNAP and to Obamacare, 1/3. So I'm very conscious. But there's nothing you can do if you don't have the other side that is in government with us, that is legislating with the GOP. If they don't want to play, if they don't want to play this game, the American game. I'm very upset with what's really happening because you putting politics over what's needed for the rest of the American people.
And as we've been reporting on Saturday, those SNAP benefits will lapse for the first time in history. Congresswoman Salazar, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure to be always with you.
Thank you. The Pentagon's plan to train over 20,000 National Guard members to deal with what they call domestic disorder. A look at what's behind the move next on The Takeout. And welcome back to The Takeout. Here's a look at what else we're watching this evening. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is softening his claim of the link between Tylenol and autism. Last month, you'll remember, Kennedy stood side by side with the president, declaratively connecting the two. But on Wednesday, he struck a more moderate position.
The causative association with between Tylenol given in pregnancy and the perinatal periods is not sufficient to say it definitely caused autism, but it is very suggestive. And it's suggestive in animal studies and core blood studies and observational studies from nation to nation.
Now, this week, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton launched a lawsuit accusing Johnson & Johnson and Kenvue, those are the companies behind the over-the-counter pain reliever, of deceptive practices. Health experts have widely pushed back on that claim that Tylenol causes autism. And the Senate confirmation hearing for President Trump's Surgeon General pick, Dr. Casey Means, had to be postponed this week after she went into labor. Means' nomination has come with its fair share of controversy. The wellness influencer did not finish her medical residency and does not currently have a valid medical license. There's no word on when that hearing will be rescheduled. And CBS News has confirmed that the Pentagon ordered all state National Guards to form what they're calling quick reaction forces, available for rapid deployments to address potential civil unrest. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga joins me now to go through all of this. Okay, so Nicole, can you walk us through kind of what this all means?
Yeah, this is the largest change to the domestic mission of the National Guard that we have seen in well over a decade, Caitlin, and let me explain why. The leaked memos show that the National Guard Bureau is standing up quick reaction forces across all 54 states and territories, and they mobilize in the event of domestic disturbances, civil unrest, federal emergencies. We have seen them before in natural disasters, like, say, after Hurricane Katrina. But this would be a more permanent change, and it all hinges on the executive order that we saw President Trump put out back in August that also spurred the federal task force that was tough on crime, in the president's words, here in D.C. Now, each state already has a Homeland Response Force that is tasked with chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear response. Now, they will have a dedicated riot control element. That is the team that we are talking about now.
And what would this look like in practice?
Yeah, practically it would look like a few hundred personnel within each state. The sizes do vary based on the state. And it includes a subset of 100 troops that are always ready to deploy, including 25% of those troops ready to deploy in as little as 8 hours, 100% of troops ready to deploy within a day. So they are designed to mobilize really fast, trained in non-lethal weapon use, riot formations, escalation of force tactics. Each state is going to receive funding for the gear they need and also 2 trainers per state that can sort of keep this program up and running. Of course, a lot of criticism, a lot of concern about the blurring of the military and domestic law enforcement operations. And we have already seen in cities across the country, be it in Memphis, in Washington, D.C., task forces being tough on crime, plus National Guard deployments and the federalization of the National Guard in places like Seattle, Los Angeles, Chicago.
Right.
So we are likely to see legal challenges here. The Posse Comitatus Act still stands, and it compounds the existing controversy around federalized Guard deployment here in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. I think as a lot of people are wondering what this means for those federal deployments. Nicole Skinga, thank you very much. We'll keep an eye on that. We appreciate your reporting.
Thank you.
And voters in New York City's mayoral race are turning out in record numbers. What that could mean for the race between Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa. You're watching The Takeout. And welcome back. New York City is seeing a massive early voting spike compared to the last election in 2021. This is due to that high-profile mayoral race between Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa. The first 5 days of early voting saw more than 300,000 ballots cast, which is more than 5 times more than the same time period during that last mayoral election. So for more, I'm joined by CBS News Director of Election Analytics, Kabir Khanna. Kabir, great to see you. I hear you have some new numbers for us. Can you walk us through those?
Sure thing, Caitlin. Good to be with you from New York City, where voters are turning out big. I'll show you some numbers. We've blown so far past 2021 that I actually had to find a new race to compare these early voting numbers to.
Oh, wow.
As of yesterday, we were at 370,000 early check-ins. Well, as of a few minutes ago, the Board of Election just let us know we're now at about 400,000 early votes so far and counting.
Wow.
Now, our models suggest that at this rate, we could see a total vote, including Election Day, of maybe 1.5 million to close to 2 million total votes. If that happens, that would be a super high turnout rate for a New York City mayoral and the highest rate we've seen in decades. I think it's really an indication of how this campaign has activated new voters and energized people, and it's a sign of an expanding electorate, Caitlin.
That's so interesting, Kabir, and this has become a national race with so much attention given Mamdani. I'm wondering if you have any insight into borough by borough, like if that gives us any sort of sense about how things are shaping up.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I'll just start by saying is people have been wondering if the young folks who helped propel Mamdani to victory in the primary are turning out. They're about 35% of early voters. You should expect this number to climb as we approach Election Day. We can show you a map of the city where we have the different neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs mapped out. Some of the boroughs that have been outperforming in terms of turnout are Manhattan and Brooklyn. And if we look specifically at some of the parts of Brooklyn that have been outperforming expectations, we see places like Bushwick, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, and even Long Island City up here that have been much higher than expected. These are places that in the primary were very friendly territory for Mamdani. His campaign is probably looking at the early turnout numbers and feeling like they're on track to do well on Tuesday, Caitlin.
Yeah, and those demographics you mentioned in that earlier slide, a lot of them live in those areas too. Kabir, thank you. We will stay tuned for that race on Tuesday, and I know you'll be a big part of our coverage there. Thank you, Kabir. And the race to be New Jersey's next governor is in a dead heat right now. We'll look into Election Day with our panel, and that's next. You're watching The Takeout. Welcome back. In honor of Charlie Kirk, Vice President J.D. Vance took questions from college students at a Turning Point event in Mississippi last night, including one about his thoughts about legal immigrants in the United States. Take a listen.
I have a girlfriend who's studying in America off a visa. Our hope is eventually getting a green card. So what is your view on legal immigration?
My view is, look, there are people who want to come to the United States of America, and some of them, I'm sure, can enrich the United States of America by coming here, but we have got to get our overall numbers way, way down. Too many people have come into the United States of America.
Let's bring in our reporter panel for this Thursday. Daniela Diaz from Notice and Politico's Nicholas Wu, and they both cover Congress. It's nice to see you both off the Hill and in our studio today. I want to talk all about the government shutdown in a minute. But Daniela, I'm interested in J.D. Vance because the president has obviously been on his Asia trip. He's coming back tonight. But J.D. Vance has really kind of taken on this role. I mean, you see him in there, but also he was on the Hill this week. It's interesting how he has kind of become the kind of lead negotiator a little bit from the White House perspective. Has that done anything to work on any minds in Congress?
I mean, it really seems that they're still talking about potentially trying to end the shutdown. Those talks have really escalated. They say they're talking, but nothing concrete escalated in the past couple of days. But there's nothing new. I mean, it's been weeks of this. You've been there, Caitlin. Nick's been there. I've been there. And regardless of the fact that the vice president has met with senators, the shutdown has come up. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of urgency to address this. Although, to be clear, a lot is about to change this weekend. We've all been seeing the reports of, obviously, SNAP is ending on November 1st. So is the ACA subsidies expire. People are going to see their open enrollment numbers, the premiums go up. That could be what changes things next week. But the Senate left town earlier today, and the House has been gone since September 19th.
I mean, Nick, this could be potentially the longest shutdown in history if it makes it past next Wednesday. Daniela mentioned those pressure points. How are you seeing the two parties handle those pressure points? It seems like they're thinking that the other side is going to cave. I mean, they both seem to be looking at November 1st as kind of a deadline for the other side. What's your reporting?
I mean, that's kind of been the problem with the entire shutdown from the get-go. Both parties think that all these different pressure points, the expiration of SNAP benefits, the expiration of these tax credits, the issues with the FAA and air traffic delays, that'll be the thing to bring the other side to the table. But so far, neither side is budging. No one wants to come down from any of their positions. Republicans are insisting that Democrats just need to open up the government and then they can talk. Democrats are saying Trump needs to be in the room. We need to talk about the ACA and healthcare, and then we can figure out everything else. Right.
I mean, these positions, they've been so entrenched for the past month, and it's been amazing that we have seen all this outside pressure start to build, and nobody is budging. Daniela, I'm wondering if you have seen any sort of signs of any conversations that may rise to the level of being something, or is this really just kind of a blinking game?
From the very beginning, Caitlin, Majority Leader John Thune in the Senate has said this is going to be something rank and file members solve. And essentially it's going to take both moderates in the Democratic side and the Republican side to start these conversations. And what we've seen is that there's the very beginning of talks in the last 36 hours, they're calling them shadow negotiations, shadow conversations between moderates, Democratic senators, and Republicans to potentially address ACA subsidies, which is the reason that Democrats are not supporting that CR that Republicans passed in the House along party lines. And it's unclear whether they'll be able to do anything in the next couple of days. Like I mentioned, they're not here. But I did talk to Senator Lisa Murkowski earlier today, and she said, there's talks of talks. And then when we asked her, well, Senator, what is there updates? What can you tell us about where these talks are? She said, let me go check. Even she's still figuring out whether anything has moved the ball on these sort of talks and negotiations.
You say that this is like the least urgent shutdown that we've had, and I really think that's true. And Nick, I'm wondering, I keep thinking about Democrats, and you see the numbers 13 times now. They have not voted to open the government or support this short-term resolution. I'm wondering if you're sensing anything among Democrats of, SNAP beneficiaries. A lot of people that we say that we care about are going to really suffer here. Is that having any, momentum in terms of pushing any Democrats?
So far, that hasn't moved anyone yet. I mean, I asked Democrats at a press conference yesterday whether or not they, how they weighed the needs of their constituents who, they were fighting for healthcare for, and those who could potentially go hungry without SNAP benefits in the coming days. And Democrats told me that they didn't really see any contradiction between those two positions. And so, this brings us back to the kind of loggerheads that we've been at on this all along.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no end in sight, and a lot of people are going to be hit especially hard this weekend on all fronts. I know you guys will be back at it next week when Congress comes back. Should note the House has not been in session for the past 6 weeks either. We'll see whether they return. Daniela and Nick, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And from tax returns to taking hot dog orders, we'll take you to downtown Washington, D.C. to meet this furloughed IRS worker who turned the government shutdown into an opportunity to live out his lifelong dream. You're watching The Takeout. And welcome back. As the government shutdown drags on, some federal employees have taken on second jobs to make ends meet. One of them is furloughed IRS employee Isaac Stein, and he's joining us now from a hot dog stand that he now owns and operates. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. Can you just walk me through what these past 30 days have been like for you? How do you go from being an IRS lawyer to operating this lovely hot dog stand you have right there?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me, Caitlin. I just wanted to mention that. So this was really intended about 70% as a fun backyard weekend art project, a little bit as a for-profit business. But I very much, so I decided that I wanted to set this business up back in June. And then I got the relevant permits, and I started vending here in September, and then I got furloughed on October 8th. So before the shutdown, I was here for a few weekends on Friday and a few Fridays as well, and now I'm out here pretty much every day.
And Isaac, how is business going right now?
I mean, it's absolutely wild. It's gangbusters. I mean, before a week ago, I might be out here for a whole day, and I might sell 30 or 40 hot dogs. Now it's selling out in less than 3 hours, and or excuse me, less than 4 hours. They really care about the accuracy, and I feel like I've attempted to coin the term the Scheistgeist, combination of shysters and zeitgeist, to describe what seems to be, that's how I feel. It seems like there's something greater happening, and I am, in the sense, and I just want to emphasize that I'm really overjoyed at the community response to my project here, because I really came out here with the intent to just share my art and my attempt at humor, and people really seem to be responding.
Well, as a IRS lawyer, I'm very glad that you care about accuracy, so that's good to hear. How are you feeling about this shutdown right now? Do you have any sense of, when you might be able to get back to work, and do you actually want to go back to your day job now that you have this seemingly booming business here?
Well, to answer the last part of your question, at my earliest opportunity, as soon as I'm called into work, my intent is to return to my federal job as a tax attorney. And I really look forward to doing that as soon as possible. And I also want to mention that I have many coworkers and other federal employees have stopped here at Shysters. And the support that I've gotten from them is overwhelming. Overwhelmingly positive, and I'm very happy to see them as well. But I think the unifying theme is that everyone just really wants to do their job and get back to work.
And what has this meant for you? I mean, you have found this, been able to lean into your passion here, but are you missing a paycheck right now? What does that mean for your life? How have you been able to kind of make ends meet? Has it been hard?
I very much intended this to, as I said, be an art project and also result in a for-profit business. But as for me personally, I'm doing okay, and I'm really enjoying operating my stand.
All right. Well, you're also doing a great job talking among all that traffic behind you. So great job there. Shysters Hot Dogs, as you can see on your screen. Go ahead.
Yes, and Caitlin, I did want to mention this is actually a very tame day. So this is good.
Okay, well, best of luck to you and your business, and we'll be thinking about you. Keep us posted on how you do. All right,
Thank you so much.
Shysters Hot Dogs in downtown Washington. Isaac, thank you. And happy Thursday to everyone. That does it for us here today at The Takeout, but there's more ahead on CBS News 24/7. Stick around. The Daily Report starts right now.